This is a Brahmin. And this is the movement that wants him gone. You may have heard about this from recent headlines in India about calls to eradicate Sanatan Dharma, or politicians giving open calls for violence. So, where did all this come from? In our previous video, we explored how institutional anti-Brahminism wasn't born out of justice, but colonial strategy. During British rule, Brahmins weren't the ruling elite. They were the main anti-colonial activists. Lawyers, journalists, reformers, and teachers who pushed for independence. The British needed to break this power. And so they found allies among princely rulers like Shahu of Kolhapur, who turned social reform into a political tool, firing Brahmins, shutting down their schools, funding anti-Brahmin newspapers. The British cheered. Divide and rule achieved. But here's what we didn't explain before. This wasn't restricted to Kolhapur. This was the beginning of a much larger movement. A movement that would travel from Maharashtra to Tamil Nadu and explode into something far more radical under EV Ramasamy and the Dravidian parties. Let's zoom in on Shahu Maharaj. He's often called a progressive king, the one who fought for the rights of the backward classes. But what's often left out is that he wasn't just fighting for their rights, but working with the British colonizers to demonize one community. And he was building a national strategy. Historian K.N. Kavlekar puts it clearly. Shahu never made a difference between Bombay Presidency and Madras Presidency as far as the non-Brahmin cause was concerned. He actively advised non-Brahmin leaders in Madras, funded their ideas, and even supported caste classification projects to divide society into blocks. He didn't want attention. He wanted to leave a mark in Indian history, no matter if it turned out to be a blot. Kavlekar notes, Shahu remained behind the curtain, saving himself from the critics' eyes. From behind the scenes, he pulled the strings, guiding the rise of the Justice Party, which would become Tamil Nadu's first anti-Brahmin political front. Shahu was building a national network of coordinated anti-Brahmin campaigns, from Kolhapur to Madras to Bengal. Even the London Times noticed, writing, Shahu Maharaj prepared the ground from which there sprang the non-Brahmin revolt. Now let's talk about EV Ramasamy, or as his followers call him, Periyar, meaning the Great One. EVR was born in 1879 in Tamil Nadu into a wealthy merchant family, but his ambition went far beyond adding to his family's wealth. He wanted power. He started as a Congress activist, got frustrated, left Congress, and became a full-time anti-caste crusader. He founded the self-respect movement in the 1920s, which called for atheism, rationalism, women's rights, and the destruction of Brahmin dominance. Sounds noble, right? But over time, his activism turned into something darker. In 1938, Periyar joined the Justice Party, the very party Shahu Maharaj had helped shape decades earlier. And once Periyar took over, he transformed it from a political party into an ideological war machine. His speeches, unfiltered. Sample this from Periyar Thought Collection Part 1.
Drive out the Brahmins. Burn down their agrharams. If we shoot 10 or 20 people and are hanged for it, what's wrong with it?
These were direct calls to violence against Brahmins that led to real intimidation. Brahmins were bullied in schools, mocked in films, and driven out of public life. Their sacred symbols were desecrated, and many fled the state altogether. Periyar wasn't hiding his goals. He saw Brahmins as a cancer to be cut out. And yet, he's still celebrated today as a rationalist. This wasn't rationalism. It was radical tribalism, dressed up in modern language. Now here's the part that doesn't fit the textbook narrative. We're told this movement was about fighting injustice, but the data tells a different story. According to the 1911 census, the major landowners in Madras were not Brahmins. They were Velalas, Reddys, Kammas, Chetis. Brahmins? They owned almost no land. They weren't zamindars. They weren't industrialists. They were mostly poor. Teaching, studying, reading Sanskrit. Some worked in government, yes, but only because they passed the exams. They didn't own the system, they just excelled in it. And that made them an easy target. The politics of mass envy was taking shape in India. After Gandhi was assassinated in 1948, Brahmins were attacked across Maharashtra. And in Tamil Nadu, even 7 decades later, Dravidian ideologues boast about what could have happened. As Veeramani, the editor of Viduthalai, a Dravidian pamphlet boasted in 2022, if EVR had just given an eye signal, what would have happened here? You should worship him for not doing it. This isn't ancient history, this is still part of modern Tamil politics. Periyar's portraits are everywhere. His quotes are painted on walls, his ideology is taught in schools, his anger is echoed in today's politics. Udayanidhi Stalin's controversial remark in 2023, eradicate Sanatan Dharma, echoes the sentiment.
சிலவற்றை நாம் ஒழிக்கத்தான் வேண்டும், எதிர்க்க முடியாது. கொசு, டெங்கு காய்ச்சல், மலேரியா, கொரோனா இதையெல்லாம் நம்ம எதிர்க்க கூடாது, ஒழித்து கட்ட வேண்டும்.
Same message, different century. So what do we make of all this? The story we're told that Shahu and Periyar were just reformers fixing injustice is only a half-truth. Yes, they fought for non-Brahmins, but they also scapegoated a tiny, mostly poor community. They partnered with colonial rulers, built networks to fracture society, and invented a new kind of politics based not on truth, but on naked envy. What began in Kolhapur as a clever power play turned into a century-long campaign of identity-based division. And that campaign still hasn't ended. So here's where we are. The anti-Brahmin movement that began in Kolhapur under Shahu Maharaj didn't stay there. It spread, first through the Justice Party, then through Periyar's Dravidian movement, and finally into the electoral machinery of Tamil Nadu. The movement rebranded itself over time, from social reform to rationalism to secular politics, but it carried the same core: resentment toward a tiny, literate minority that had no land, no wealth, but prestige and influence through education. What began as a colonial strategy to fracture Hindu unity has now become a political industry, with slogans, street names, statues, and entire parties built on the misguided idea of punching up at a group that isn't even on the ladder anymore. So if you're trying to understand modern caste politics, it helps to know it didn't start in Tamil Nadu. It started in Kolhapur with a king, a network, and a bad idea, one that still shapes Indian politics 100 years later.